Hello and welcome to Season 1, Episode 13 of Jacked Up Being Frank. I'm Jack Lonowitz, here with my co-host Frank Aranio, and we'll discuss the wildcard games that happened this week, and then talk about the divisional games that happened this week that are going to happen this week, of course, coming up after the wildcard weekend, which we just watched. After that, we'll talk about the New York Knicks a little bit. We didn't talk about them last time, so I'm going to try to hit them a little bit because they've had some struggling losses. So we'll talk about how they're struggling and how they just got a big win last night. So we'll see how that really plans out forward, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. And I want to start with this about what was your big takeaway on CJ Stroud and the Texans defeating the Chargers by a big margin? I guess they were an upset going into it. They were kind of an upset, even though they had the home field advantage, but with the division stuff, and that the Chargers looked better. But what's your kind of takeaway after this game about the Texans coming out and winning?
Very surprised. I gave the Texans very little chance. Wrote them off. I think everybody wrote them off. I mean, they were written off weeks ago. They're in a weak division, so the thought on them was, well, they're going to get in because they're in a weak division. They've been playing poorly for a while. The Chargers, I mean, everybody was high in the Chargers. I was too. I thought it'd be different for the Chargers. They've had their playoff struggles for a long time. Thought it'd be different with Harbaugh, Herbert's development. But he had a terrible game with 4 interceptions. So very surprising result. I mean, things like this happen. I guess we shouldn't have been this surprised, but I mean, it was a strong consensus that the Chargers would impose their will in this game and the Harbaugh effect, and just very surprised by it. But credit to the Texans. Hey, look, they won a playoff game last year. They won the wild card round at home last year, which that game was against Cleveland, and I remember most people picking Cleveland in that game. They routed Cleveland. So maybe we should have learned our lesson. I'm talking about us who wrote the Texans off because they routed Cleveland last year, although they had a better regular season. But, Texans, hey, another playoff win. The head coach, Ryans, what's his first name?
DeMeco Ryans.
DeMeco Ryans. Yeah. With CJ Stroud, his second year, his second playoff win. So I don't think they have any chance next round. I guess probably shouldn't write them off, but I'm writing them off next round. But very surprising result. What'd you think, Jack?
Yeah, I thought one of the biggest things going in this game that we didn't even think about is this Texan defense. I mean, I don't think we thought about them at all, but this Texan defense came to play, and they really won this game because, as you touched a little bit on how you thought the Chargers were going to assert their will, and me too. I think everybody thought the Chargers were going to assert their will because when you get down to the NFL playoffs, it's more about let's run this ball. Yes, you have those receivers, have those wide receiver ones who are great, but you want to be able to run the football, and that's what the Chargers do very well with Jim Harbaugh. So they're going to try to run the ball very well. But the Texans did a great job. And also, yes, the 4 interceptions look great, but I feel like they really won this game because they kind of counteracted that running game for the Chargers. I think they did a very good job stopping that. And again, in the playoffs, if that's the one thing that you do really well, that stuff gets taken out in the playoffs because there's a lot of schemes that happen. There's a lot of studying. So that just shows what the NFL playoffs are. You get a week to study on that team, and you understand that they want to run the ball, and you force them to pass, and there goes 4 interceptions for Justin Herbert. Not saying he's bad or anything, but you would rather them run the ball if you're Jim Harbaugh. So they took that away, and they made him pass, or they took away the run really well.
I'm kind of mad at myself because usually when you have games like this where it's such a consensus, a red flag goes up for me, and I'm like, everybody's so convinced that a certain team's going to win, and obviously the other team's going to lose. But I was totally along with the consensus. Like I really gave Houston no chance, even though they were home, but no chance. I just thought that the Chargers would impose their will. And I have such respect for Harbaugh as a coach. I think he's arguably the best football coach on earth right now. I mean, he won a national championship in college last year, built his alma mater, Michigan, to the top of college football, comes back to the NFL after having a lot of success with the 49ers. So I'm just like, the Chargers, they're for real now. It's not same old Chargers, but I don't want to call it same old Chargers because I think eventually they're going to have success because I do believe in Harbaugh and Herbert. Obviously he's really good. He's got to prove himself for the playoffs, but I think that's going to come for them. But it certainly didn't on Saturday. And then Houston, I think, earned a lot of respect. So now them going forward, I think in the playoffs, which I guess I'm disrespecting them because I give them no chance next week, but that's because of who they're playing.
Well, yeah, I think
But hey, I mean they earn respect there, like with their defense and the program that they have. Look, they're in a weak division; it does help, but hey, they take advantage of it, and they've won a playoff game now 2 years in a row. And not only won, they dominated. They dominated Cleveland last year. Cleveland was on a roll going to the playoffs. Everybody was high on Cleveland. Everybody was high on the Chargers here. So a lot of credit to the Texans. They shut a lot of people up. Good job by, again, D'Amico Ryans, CJ Stroud, and their defense that, hey, they did an excellent job.
Yeah, it's a guy, CJ Stroud, who was really struggling. I mean, 50 yards passing, 1 TD against the Tennessee Titans on January 6th, 185, 1 interception against Baltimore on December 25th, and then 244 passing yards with 2 passing touchdowns, 2 interceptions against Kansas City on December 21st. Yes, he has bad games down there even more, but this game he showed up 282, 1 pass touchdown, 1 interception, and they were able to ride a defense, so it was good. He had a great game, and I think that is what we kind of saw at a rookie CJ Stroud. The way he has struggled this year was kind of crazy to me. It's crazy to me that he has had this sophomore slump. But yeah, I mean, if he can show up in the big moments as he did.
He showed up in the biggest game of the season so far. We'll see how he plays at Kansas City next week. Got to protect the football. I mean, you can't turn the ball over against Kansas City. Can't turn the ball over the playoffs, but you play the Chiefs, you're going to have to protect the football. But real credit to him. I mean, his completion percentage was, almost 67%. Yards per attempt was almost 8 yards per attempt. So they were methodically moving the football. 168 yards on the ground. Yards total for the game, it was 429 for Houston, 261 for the Chargers. Texans overall, they had 6.1 yards per play compared to 4.8 yards per play for the Chargers. I mean, look, the Texans dominated this game. It's a nice story. I mean, a team like this, everybody wrote them off, dismissed them. I like stories like this. So now, like, the Texans, like, hey, they should have now earned people's respect. Now 2 years in a row, being dominant at home, but dominant against teams that people were very high on. So they look. I think now people have to respect the Houston Texans and look at what they're building, and not just say, hey, they had a good regular season last year. This year's regular season wasn't so good. They're just fortunate because they're in the AFC South. They got a good thing going here. They're building a program. This game coming up for them, they got to be competitive. I mean, if they go get blown out against Kansas City and are non-competitive, I think it opens the door for people to criticize them, and say, hey, like, they're not even close for the big time, which I think would be legitimate. But hey, they're in the final 8 again 2 years in a row, so they're doing something right. And then just going back to the Chargers, I believe eventually it's going to work for them, but this is really disappointing for them. I mean, I don't think they would have got past next weekend playing the Chiefs, but they would have been a team that I think some people would have said, hey, I could be an upset here. They played them well in the regular season in Kansas City. So I think this is a massive disappointment for the Chargers.
And this is also a good learning opportunity because they got schemed very well, I think, of their running game. I mean, J.K. Dobbins, 26 yards on the ground. Gus Edwards, 22 yards on the ground. These are not top-level running backs, but they've made it work the whole entire season. I think this is kind of a thing to step back, be like, maybe you need better receivers. Hey, you have one receiver that went off, Lad McConkey, who's a great wide receiver for them. But I think they need other weapons. I think this really showed them what they should look forward to in the offseason because they still are young.
It does, but I think it's a massive disappointment for them. Like, they're a team that was in the playoffs 2 years ago and blew a 27-0 lead in Jacksonville. Last year, they had a disastrous season. They fired that clown head coach. I forget his name. He was a total clown. Got rid of him. They bring in, like I said, arguably the best football coach on the planet right now. I think this is what he is. I have that level of respect and admiration for Harbaugh as a football coach. This is a massive disappointment for the Chargers. I mean, look, you're not guaranteed anything. They're in a really tough division because they're the Chiefs division. I mean, you have Denver, who's getting better. We'll talk about them a little bit. The Raiders are terrible, but it's a toughest spot in terms of division because you're in the Chiefs division. So even next year, like they could have a very good regular season, but it's going to be very tough for them to win the division. So, you think odds are next year they'll be a playoff team, but they'll be a wild card again. I mean, look, we don't know, it's a year from now, but they wasted a year here in the playoffs. So I don't think it could be understated. I don't think it could be overstated how much of a disappointment this is for the Los Angeles Chargers. I mean, they should have been playing next week, and then the expectations next week for them would have been play neck and neck with the Chiefs and have a chance into the fourth quarter, even late into the fourth quarter, and possibly pull an upset. I mean, this is a massive disappointment for the Chargers with the quarterback they have. Now there's going to be all sorts of questions with him. A lot of pressure on him next year and a ton of pressure on them next year.
Yeah, I mean, it's a ton of pressure on them. It's disappointing. But again, one more thing, 119 on the ground for Joe Mixon. So it was really a counteracting. Let's see. You can run the football, but we know we have a guy in Joe Mixon who has been great all year, and we trust him to run that football. So I think it's a good thing that they've been able to counteract. That's one way you could beat the Chargers and beat this team, is beat a good time, big time running team, is trying to counteract with your own running back, especially if somebody like Joe Mixon, who can go for 106 on the ground with a touchdown. So it's good for them that they had that back.
These are the kind of games where you earn respect or you lose respect. And the Texans gained a lot of respect. Again, they blew out the Browns last year. But you can say, it's, one game. You're playing the Cleveland Browns, who, maybe people shouldn't have been so high in the Cleveland Browns. But they were hot at that time. So now the Texans do it again. So now it's like, there's something here. So DeMeco Ryans, who's proved himself that he has a lot of potential as a head coach and is a good head coach for sure. We'll see if he becomes a great head coach. But he earned a lot of respect here, like you said, with his defensive scheme and just his team going out there and blitzing an opponent, meaning, really taking it to him, not literally blitzing. I mean, they blitzed defensively, but, just really taking it to the Chargers. The Texans, DeMeco Ryans, Stroud, their entire operation earns a lot of respect here. So kudos to them.
Yeah, it's not like they beat a scrub here. They beat the Chargers, who again,
tremendous performance. I mean, they earned total respect.
We talk about playoff football, and Chargers were one team we're looking at, and they're popping up like, the Chargers. They're going to be a team that is going to run the ball. We talked about it. Running the ball is a big thing in this playoffs.
Jack, people basically gave Houston no chance, including myself. So for Houston to not only beat them, but just take it to them, I mean, leave no doubt, it's really impressive. And then again, on the flip side, massive disappointment for the Chargers.
Yeah. But talk about an even more big disappointment is the Steelers. They lose 28-14 to the Ravens. And wait, did you say you're not surprised or are surprised?
Not surprised.
Oh, yeah. Me either. I think there's a team in the Ravens who kind of are coming in with a chip on their shoulder, especially with QB Lamar Jackson, and just able to run the ball. As we keep saying over and over again, that's going to be the common denominator for us, is they can run the ball. And they have two players that can run the ball, one the QB, one the running back. And again, it's not like what Lamar only does. He passes the ball very well. They have players. But again, in a game where they don't have their number one wide receiver, they pound the rock, and they can do it at a very efficient level. So it's good for them to get that win, and they're on to Buffalo. So that's just their side of it. And I think there's a lot to talk about Pittsburgh. I mean, they lose again in the first round. It's kind of a thing where it's like, how many years are we going to do this?
Yeah, they haven't won a playoff game in 8 years. I mean, they've been in the playoffs. I'm not sure if it's 4 times or 5 times in that time frame, but they have not won a playoff game in 8 years. So, they're a model of consistency for sure, but it's come a point where they have not had high-level success in a long time. They haven't been to the Super Bowl in 14 years. The last time we were there, they lost to the Packers 14 years ago in Super Bowl 45. Their last Super Bowl win was 16 years ago against the Cardinals, the 2008 season in Super Bowl 43. I mean, this is an organization with high standards, a great history, 6 Super Bowl championships. I think they've been to 9 Super Bowls. So this is one of the great, if not the greatest franchise in the history of the NFL, and they just have not had high-level success in recent years. So, I mean, they deserve criticism, no question about it. And honestly, like, I was really critical of them last year. I was, big on that they hadn't had success in recent years in the playoffs, and they get all this credit. And I'm like, what are they really getting credit for? They're a gold standard franchise, and they go 9-8, 10-7. When it was 16 games, it was like, okay, 10-6, 9-7. I mean, they need to do better than that. Like, what are we giving them so much credit for? But then, honestly, the way they started this year, I backed off. I said, you know what? Maybe not even maybe. I was wrong. Like, and look, I think Tomlin's a great head coach. But early this year, I started to buy in. Not that I thought they were going to the Super Bowl. I didn't, but I'm like, I'm taking the Steelers really seriously. And then they just were awful down the stretch, losing game after game at the end of the season. And then they were non-competitive in this playoff game, which I wasn't surprised by. I thought Baltimore would assert themselves and control this game, which they did. But, I mean, you go through the game statistics. I mean, the rushing, you just look at that, how glaring that is. Almost 300 yards for Baltimore, 299. And Pittsburgh ran for 29 yards. I mean, just total domination. So there's a lot there with Pittsburgh. I mean, the expectations are high, and I think they really got to look at what they're doing here. Again, Tomlin's a great head coach. He's been there a long time now. I'm not saying it's time for him to go, but sometimes you get to a point where it's good for both sides, where, Tomlin can move on and go coach somewhere else, maybe take a year off, come back. The Steelers get a new guy in there. There were some rumblings about that at the end of last year. And I haven't heard, I haven't heard anything in that front.
I think I heard that something that on the social media that they are not looking for another coach. They're standing pat on Mike Tomlin for next season.
And that's their way. I mean, they've had 3 head coaches in how long now? It's like 65 years or something. And look, it's worked for them. I'm not saying they should do that, but, he's been the head coach for 18 years, and he is a great head coach. He goes somewhere else and have great success, continue on. He's a young guy. I'm not sure his exact age, but he's still pretty young. And God willing, has a lot of coaching ahead of him. But and the focus isn't just, it's the whole organization. It's their GM, it's the front office, it's from the top down. They got a lot to look at here. And, again, they're a gold standard franchise, so they have to do a lot better. It's not enough to get off to a great start, and then finish the season like this and be out again in the first round of the playoffs. And they played their division rival, their bitter rival, and just got dominated. So that's another thing. You look at where you're at compared to your top competitor in your division, and it's so clear that Baltimore is a lot better than Pittsburgh. And then Pittsburgh has to worry about Cincinnati. Cincinnati got off to a bad start this year. Burrow had some injury issues, but they finished the year strong, just missed the playoffs. So the Steelers have their hands full in the AFC North.
Yeah, they do. And I think the defense, I was thinking about it, like, yes, the defense is great, but when it gets exposed, like when they're not exposed, but when there's a team that could definitely score about 25 to 28 points on that team, and you don't have that offense to catch up, and you never had, it's going to be a problem. I know this whole defense thing is great, but good defensive teams that have won championships have good offenses. They have good enough offenses. So if you put up 25 to 28, the Steelers can't really hold up with that. They don't really have that offensive firepower to hold up with the Baltimore.
But their defense clearly did not do the job in this game. The time of possession was almost 2-1.
Yeah.
You look at the yards per play. Pittsburgh's defense did not show up in this game. So it's both sides of the football.
Yeah.
Again, there's a lot there for Pittsburgh, and, you can see how far away they are from their arch rival in their division. That's what hurts even more for them. It's against Baltimore. So it's going to be an offseason that's critical for Pittsburgh, and where they're at, where we could see where they're at, and what they do going forward.
Yeah, I think it's going to be critical for them. And I think
another thing, Jack, turnovers weren't a factor. There were no turnovers in the game. So it's not like, they didn't protect the
Yeah, like
ball.
Wilson threw a few interceptions. No, it wasn't that.
And look, it's good they didn't turn the ball over, but they didn't force any turnovers. Turnovers it wasn't a factor. It's just
Yeah, and I think
I don't even think a 14-point spread tells the story of this game. I think
I
it's
don't.
kind of deceiving.
Yeah,
I think it was even more of a dominant performance by Baltimore than the score even leads. Even leads, and it's because they, how well they ran the ball, and obviously when you run the ball, you're chewing clock. So they I mean, just look at the time of possession, look at the yards on the ground. I mean, this was, again, you look at a 14-point spread, it was more like a 4-touchdown game.
my biggest takeaway is this is a complete team against a team that is not complete. I know it's kind of dumb. It's kind of like dumb, but this is a complete team against a team that's not complete. I think it's simple, as simple
Well,
as
you
that.
just see the separation between the teams. I mean, it's not even close. So we're focused on the Pittsburgh end of this right now, and we'll get to Baltimore later. But for Pittsburgh, I mean, this is incredibly alarming. It's like you went into the game thinking they have a really tall task. They're probably not going to win. I gave them no chance in this game, and I think a lot of people didn't give them a chance, and it was validated. So, but it's an even bigger separation than I think even people thought. I mean, Baltimore just imposed their will in this game. So from the Pittsburgh side, it's very alarming. I know their fan base is really upset, and rightfully so. And they got a ton of work to do as an organization.
Yeah, I mean, I want to talk about Baltimore a little bit. I mean, you can look at a Baltimore team that goes great on offense. I mean, this was without their wide receiver one, is Dave Flowers. I mean, look at the offense. 180 on the ground for Lamar and Derrick Henry. They got a touchdown from Rashad Bateman. Like, there's players contributing. Mark Andrews getting 27. So, but then you look at the defense, and you still have good to great players in defense. You got Roquan Smith. You've got some guys that can really, Marlon Humphrey. Like, they're guys that can lock up your best guys, and they also have a great offense. So,
well, I look at Baltimore and say they're a complete team. They're
yeah,
a really good team. The issue is they got to play a really good team next week. And if they win that game, they got to play a team that's even better the following week. So the road is really tough. They got to go on the road, assuming Houston doesn't pull off the upset of all upsets. But they're going to have to go on the road in really tough environments against a really good team in Buffalo, and then a great, all-time team in Kansas City. So they got an incredibly tough road in order to get to the Super Bowl. Can they do it? Yeah, I hesitate because I don't think they're going to do it. But they have a. Would you say they have a complete team? I mean, if they're not complete, they're close to complete. They're a really good football team.
yeah. I just think that I think the question here is this year different because they have Derrick Henry? I know it's just one player, but the way they're going to run the ball.
Well, a year ago was not calling them a really good team. I think a year ago they were a very good team. Really good's like another level. They're really good, and Derrick Henry is a massive game changer and difference maker. I mean, that guy is just an absolute stud in the backfield. So he takes them to that next level where they're a really good team. And if they go into Buffalo and win, and then they go into Kansas City and win, get to a Super Bowl, then I think it's, they're that next level. It'd be great. You got to win the Super Bowl, but they have the team to do it. It's just such a tall task. And I'm going to preemptively say something like, if they lose next week, then I think it's fair game to be very critical of them. If they go win next week and then the following week play a really good game or right there and then lose, I don't think it could be, same old Ravens, they just can't get it done. I'm going to preemptively get ahead of that and say that's garbage. Now, if they go lose next week, fair game. If they win next week and then get blown out the next week, fair game. But if they get to the AFC Championship game and play a really good game, and it's into the fourth quarter, late fourth quarter, they got a chance, but they lose close, I don't think you can get on them that much. I don't think it's, Lamar Jackson can't get it done. They can't get it done. That's crap. I mean, look at who they're going up against. I mean, this is a really tough road to get to the Super Bowl. I mean, this is the toughest road as you get. I mean, look, the Steelers, Steelers are good, not great, got a lot of issues, but still, you're playing the Pittsburgh Steelers round one, and then it's Buffalo and Kansas City. Like, do you get a tougher road to the Super Bowl than that? I'm not trying to set up excuses for them, but, some roads, roads to the Super Bowl aren't all equal. This is a really tough road, and they got a lot to prove, but I don't think, again, like that scenario of like get to the AFC Championship, lose really close, I don't think that's, they can't get it done.
Yeah, I don't think it's, they can't get it done. But also with the Derrick Henry point, I'm thinking like kind of picturing in the back of my mind, like a fast forward to when they're in Arrowhead, when the passing doesn't work, when it's cold and they need some yards. I think Derrick Henry being there is bigger than I think we think. I think a big game on the road, I think being able to run that football with probably a top 3 back in the league, definitely a top 3 back in the league, is very important for them on the road.
He's a huge difference maker. Dad, we should hold off on breaking down the divisional, right? Because I have thoughts on the divisional. You want to go? Let's go to the other wild card games, and we'll come back. Because I mean, to me, the most, well, I don't know. Some people may say the NFC, but I say the AFC. I think the most fascinating stuff to talk about with the playoffs are those 3 teams in the AFC.
Yeah.
The storyline there with Kansas City, Buffalo, Baltimore, just breaking those 3 down, to me is the top story of the NFL playoffs. Or I find the AFC more interesting than the NFC, even though the NFC is really interesting too. I mean, the AFC, talk about those 3 teams, there's just so much there. And there's so much on the line in terms of history.
Okay, so talk about a team that has a hard path. Another team that has a hard path, but has another team with a QB that's amazing, out of this world, is Josh Allen, the Buffalo Bills. So, yeah, I mean, this is a team like the Bills who have their QB. They don't really have that running back in Derrick Henry, but James Cook has been playing great this whole entire season. And they have their makeshift wide receiver core, which should work until it doesn't, in my opinion. But they get it done against a good defense in Denver. And it's kind of like a whatever. I mean, Denver's, we can talk about them a little bit.
I'm hard on the Bills, and maybe you could say I'm biased because I'm a Jets fan. I'll be transparent. I don't like the Bills. They're a division rival. And I just don't like them. Not to the same level as the Patriots when they were having all their success. But I'll be transparent about that, kind of like get my bias out there. But trying to be as objective as possible. And I think this is fair. I learned nothing from yesterday. I take nothing from yesterday. First of all, the first half.
I learned what I already know, that Josh Allen's a great QB. That's it. You can go 20 for 26, 272. And, I mean, we already knew that.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's a great regular season QB. I'm going to put regular season in there. I just learned nothing from a game like that. Like, it kind of makes me think of before Peyton Manning won a Super Bowl. When Peyton Manning would win a game in the wild card round and he would dominate and the Colts would dominate, it'd be like, okay, like, fine. Like, you don't learn anything from it. Like, they're supposed to do that. What are they now going to do against New England? And until they got over the hurdle against New England, which they did in 2006, and they won the Super Bowl against the Bears that year, that was Peyton Manning's first Super Bowl win. It was like, who cares if you win a wild card game? Like, you don't learn anything from it. So that's how I don't learn anything from yesterday's game. It was 10-7 at halftime. It was this close to being 10-10. And then Buffalo asserted themselves and dominated the second half. But, like, I'm not going to say, look at, like, something changed with Buffalo. Like, we learned something about them in the playoffs. Like,
they just found out that they were better, and they just started scoring.
And it's like, it's kind of like they had to buy the first round. They played a team that's, to me, kind of like a Fugazi playoff team. They're fortunate that Cincinnati got off to a poor start this year, and Burrow had some injury issues early on. Like, I think the Bills were fortunate that Cincinnati wasn't in there. Like, imagine Cincinnati's going in there in a 7-2 game.
It's kind of
I know you can say, oh, come on, like, that's going too far. But come on, they played a Denver team that's not that good a team. They snuck in the playoffs.
They can't really run the football. They don't have a real. I
I
mean,
mean, what does Denver really do? I mean, Denver's a very unimpressive
they have a
team,
very good
and
defense.
it could have been 10-10 at halftime. The field goal doinked off the upright. I just learned nothing from the game, and then I got to listen to Tony Romo, which I can't take him, and I can't listen to him. Oh, Josh. I mean,
That's doing what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to go
I
for
mean, him calling Josh
72.
the whole game. I mean, it drives me crazy. But it's like the love fest with Josh Allen. I mean, it's specifically Romo, but like it's too much. Like, could we see this guy do something in a big game for once? And like yesterday, it was like you listen to Romo, and I heard like the guys on the set on CBS, like, oh well, they made such a big deal about this one play where he had a couple receivers downfield, but the defenders were closing in, and he didn't make the throw, but he threw to the check down receiver who was open. They're like, "Oh, see, Josh Allen, he didn't throw that ball deeper in the past in the playoffs. He would have, and it would have been an interception. Oh, what a great play!" It's like it's just a basic check down. Like you talk about this guy like he's so elite, but we're giving him credit for a play that a good quarterback makes. Like you read it, you don't make that throw, and then you make the check down throw. Like what are we? It's like a stretch to give him credit for things that you wouldn't be giving so much credit to other guys. Like I'm sorry, like it just. I talk about my bias. I see bias when it comes to Josh Allen. I mean, I just find it annoying. It's like, let's see this guy and let's see Buffalo get it done in a big spot. I mean, they've lost playoff games at home. So it's like next week, like they have to win that. There's no excuse next week. There's no, close loss or Josh Allen threw for 400 yards and they lost. No, they have to win that game next week.
Yeah, I think they do, and I think no one's questioning Josh Allen. So this isn't like I am.
I'm questioning him getting it done to play. Like, let's see it. Let's see it.
Yeah, we're not questioning it. We're not questioning his elite ability, which you talked about him being elite, but we're not questioning that. We're just questioning about if he could do it against. Because again, we're not saying these are some tough teams.
I feel like there's more criticism of Lamar Jackson than there is Josh Allen. Like you hear all the time about Lamar Jackson's shortcoming the playoffs. Like I maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm being selective. Maybe it's my bias. But it's just Josh Allen to me needs to be, and the Bills. It's really the Bills overall. Like let's not. To me, I give you no credit for yesterday. None. To me, it's like a semi-bye. You played a Fugazi playoff team. You're lucky Cincinnati wasn't in there. Like, come on. And the first half, I mean, it took them a half to get it going. Like, you do that against Baltimore, you got no chance.
You're down 20-0.
If it takes you a quarter to get it going next week, you're not winning the game. So, like, they won 31-7. They pulled away. It's like, stop, please.
Yeah, because they're playing wide receiver 1 to Cortland Sutton, which Cortland Sutton's great. It'll be a good wide receiver 2 somewhere or something like that. And they play a team that somehow cannot run the ball. I mean, 43 yards from Javonte Williams, Tyler Beatty with 8 yards, 2 kick. That stuff, when you play Baltimore, that stuff will not be happening. You'll be seeing Derrick Henry, and you'll be like, "Whoa! I just saw Javonte Williams last week." No, now you're playing Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson.
And you played a Broncos defense that, I mean, just had no chance against the run.
Yeah, that was their only chance of somehow getting upset. Whatever
it was. Buffalo was running at will from the start in that game. That's not going to be happening next week.
Yeah, James Cook's great, but that's not going to happen against other teams. I think James Cook's a great running back. I'm not going to say that, but the way he ran today is not going to happen against other teams. It just won't. I mean, talk about Steve Spagnuolo and his Chiefs and how they can just do stuff that will stop that run, stop Josh. Like when you give them a week to prepare, that stuff will not be happening. Not saying Sean Payton's bad or anything, but you look at the Chiefs and you look at what they're given, and look at what Steve Spagnuolo does.
He's a great coach, but he doesn't have even a good team. I mean, they're okay. They're okay. Buffalo had a very favorable matchup here. And maybe it was a no-win situation for them. If you're talking about, me breaking it down, like it's just okay. They won this game. That's what they're supposed to do. I'm not giving them any credit.
They lost this game, and it's like the whole world goes crazy.
Maybe if they were dominant from start to finish, I mean, like in the first half, I mean, They ran the ball at will, which opened things up. Allen made some plays. But again, it was that close to being 10-10 at halftime. So, and it was close going into midway through the third quarter, right? It was 10-7. They kicked a field goal, right? So it's 10-7. They got into the red zone the first drive.
And
they only get a field goal out of it. So again, against Denver, you're going to get away with that. But against Baltimore and Kansas City, no. So even midway through into that third quarter, you got a 13-7 game. So again, I look at that performance and say it's not good enough because it's big picture and it's their standard is Super Bowl championship or bust. That's where they're at now. I mean, if you want to say just get to the Super Bowl, okay, fine. But I look at this game and I actually see red flags in the game. And I say, if you're going to do this next week, you don't have any chance, even in your own home building. You're not beating Baltimore.
Talk about another team. I'm going to move over to another team that had some red flags, of course, as you said with the Buffalo Bills. It's Philadelphia Eagles and their win by 12 against the Green Bay Packers, where their defense is their defense. I mean, it's great, but
I thought that it was August when I was watching that game. That game was terrible. That was a preseason game. That game was so bad.
If Jalen Hurts plays that game against anybody else, oh my goodness, that game
was awful. Oh man, it was so disappointing. Because Packers Eagles, this is going to be really intriguing wild card matchup. But man, that was a terrible football game.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan Love didn't come to play. Same with let's break it. I mean, the Philadelphia Eagles also didn't come to play offensively, so let's not be like that. I mean,
the Eagles only had 121 yards passing. Yeah, I mean, for the Eagles, survive in advance, and they really had control of the game. But I think it was more about the way the Packers played than the Eagles played.
I feel like they kept giving them opportunities. The Packers could have knocked down the door, especially dominated. I feel like they could have capitalized on some of the bad Jalen Hurts plays, where he got them on a third 3 and out. As much as I'm a Giant, again, we got the Bills who are a team that you don't like, and obviously biased, but. This is not. I don't think this is biased. There's some bad plays there by Jalen Hurts throwing the ball at the ground. And the Packers could have knocked the door open. And
you turn the ball over 4 times. It's pretty simple, right? 4 turnovers, 3 interceptions, a fumble. I mean, you're not winning that. You're not winning that way, obviously. But even so, I mean, the Eagles were in control of the game, but the Packers, they weren't totally out of it, right? They hung in the game.
I feel like if they got they actually I think it could have been a whole nother game if they. I know it's a what if, but there's some plays where
if the Packers turned it over 2 times instead of 4, they probably would have won the game.
Yeah.
So if from the Eagles' point of view, it's we won. That's the goal, but we didn't play well. We got to play a lot better if we're going to win next week. I mean, because either way, regardless of who wins tonight, and tonight's game is a fascinating matchup. Hopefully it lives up to the hype. Vikings-Rams. I mean, either way, the Eagles have a tall task even at home next week.
Yeah, I think they do, and I think they're a team that could get upset. I mean, they have a great team talent-wise, offensively, but it sometimes doesn't click. And in a game like this where it doesn't click, you replace that team. I don't know what if you replace that team with anybody else.
I mean, the Eagles were 2 for 11 on third down.
Yeah, I mean, the Packers there was something, but they just didn't have it today at all. It was kind of weird.
Eagles got in the red zone 4 times, only 1 touchdown. I mean, that's not going to be good enough against Minnesota or Los Angeles.
No tush push. You just gotta get down to the one. But yeah, again, I mean, the Packers are a team that would kind of shock me at how bad they played. I mean, really shocker. I thought that maybe Love would come out there, but again, it's a team that doesn't have that wide receiver one. I keep saying it over and over again. Jaden Reed's good, but
Eagles did rush the ball well, though. I mean, they had 169 yards rushing, 5 yards per carry. So, look, hey, postseason football, you control the ground game. You run the ball like that, you set yourself up for success. So that's a big positive for them. But, I mean, Jalen Hurts, the passing game.
But again, if you're staring down Detroit or you're staring down somebody else like that, or Minnesota or the Rams, I just don't feel like that's good enough. Like, you're staring down a team like the Detroit Lions or a machine. I just don't feel like 22 points is good enough. And you talk about the yards on third downs. I just don't know if what I'm saying is valid or is just correct. My complaints here for the Eagles.
Yeah, look, I mean, the Eagles' passing game leaves a lot to be desired. Again, if the run game was really good, you go 5 yards per carry, 169 yards. I mean, that's a really good day on the ground. But with that passing game, I mean, teams are just gonna challenge you to pass, right? Stack the box.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess this
So
is
look,
why they
I
bring
mean,
in
the Eagles, they got to play a lot better in order to win next week. They are home, so obviously that bodes well for them. But they're a team that has a lot to prove. They were in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. I mean, they went toe to toe with Kansas City, but then last year,
now they have like probably one of the best top two back in football. I don't know who's better, Derrick Henry or Saquon Barkley. So it's a big thing with them. I mean, they got themselves a player who you pay because you want to see him play in these type of moments. January, February, you want to see him play in February. That's why you bring in Saquon Barkley. Yes, the 50-yard, breaking tackles and going for the touchdowns, great in the regular season. But in the play, this is where you really pay him for the playoffs. And if I'm kind of thinking about it. Yes, they played a bad game, but if they want to run the ball like this is why they're bringing Saquon Barkley. This is why you bring him in.
Yeah, it's a great point, and it's a good comparison with the Baltimore Ravens. But the Ravens have a significantly better passing game than the Eagles do, and you always need both. If you need that complementary football. There's a lot of there's a lot left to be desired there with the Eagles. There's red flags, but hey, they did win the game. Sometimes look, you have a struggle. You get a bit fortunate.
Yeah, I don't think Jalen Hurts played in 3 weeks, which is another thing too.
Well, yeah, I mean, yes, that's a huge factor there too in terms of his health. So it's not just it's poor play. It's an injury issue too. So there's major concerns there, and hey, you get another week, but sometimes, hey, you have a game like this, you struggle, you don't play well, but the opponent plays worse. You win the game. It's like, okay, got the win. We know we got to play a lot better. Got a week now to prepare. We're home again. You get it going. That certainly happened. That has certainly happened before. So they're not done because this wasn't a good performance. And like I said, they got Saquon Barkley. He's a game changer. But they're going to have a lot tougher go of it this upcoming weekend, regardless of who they play.
Yeah. So another team. I mean, this is another upset. This is the second upset of the weekend, and it's just the Commanders, just the Buccaneers. I didn't stay up and watch it because I wanted to go to bed early for school. But look, I mean, this is a game that came out to the wire, and 92 yards from Mike Evans and Baker Mayfield. Played, I guess, underwhelming for the way he played in the other games, but it gave him a chance to win here. That's the big thing. You gave your team a chance to win. But sheesh, I mean, Jaden Daniels on the other side. He's a guy that when you want to look forward to for the next few years of who's gonna be on the kind of top tier on the top ladder of QBs, he could be the one up there. Went for 24, 35, 268, and I want to see he's on the ground. Yeah, he ran for 36 yards, 13 carries. That's always a big thing about his game. That's why they probably drafted him. I mean, yes, the passing game is great, but you put in the running game as well. And yeah, I mean, and you have Terry McLaurin, who's been, I think it's great with loyalty, as we talked about, and Terry McLaurin, great guy, loyal, hasn't changed teams. He could have easily been like, oh, I want to go to for example, the Chiefs, or want to go to whatever team Aaron Rodgers is on, or something like that. But he stayed loyal. And he waited for his quarterback one, and he got it. And now he's the wide receiver one, and he has Jaden Daniels. Very good for him. 89 yards, 1 touchdown, 7 receptions. Good for him. And yeah, I mean they have a 2-back thing of Austin Eckler going for 53 and Brian Robinson going for 38. So this is a good team. What's your thoughts about them? And we kind of wrote them off.
Yeah, I wrote them off. I thought in this game that Tampa Bay at home, their playoff experience, they got Baker Mayfield. I'm a big fan of what he does. I just thought Tampa would get it done at home. I guess my take on Washington has been a bit disrespectful. I think they're clearly building something here. But this is big for them. I mean, kudos to them. I think this is a big step for them. Get a playoff win, year one for Daniels, year one for Quinn as their coach, establishing their program. So, I think they earned a lot of respect in this game. I think it's a legitimate win. Tampa Bay is a perennial playoff team now. They do benefit from the division they're in, but they've been to playoffs 5 years in a row. I know 3 of those were with Tom Brady, but the last 2 years with Baker Mayfield, Tampa Bay won at home last year in the wild card round and blitzed Philadelphia. Was semi-competitive with Detroit the next round last year. Tampa Bay is a legitimate opponent. And I thought a legitimately tough spot for Washington, but they went in there, got it done. Game one went right down to the wire. They got the field goal late that doinked off the upright and went in. But it did go in. They won the game, and look, I mean, they deserve a lot of credit, and I think this establishes Washington as legit. I don't think they're going past next round, but I think this establishes them as legit in the long term. I remember Jacob Detchapor saying this, who was on our program a few weeks ago, and he'll be back on soon to talk with us. But Jacob said that the Commanders' Super Bowl window is open. I believe he said that on our show that day, and he said it off the show a few times. I remember him saying that going back. The Commanders' Super Bowl window is open. Not necessarily they're going to win it this year or go this year, but that the window's open where they, within the next few years could very well be a Super Bowl team, that they're building something legitimate. They are a legitimate program. And I think after yesterday, that's clear. I mean, they deserve to be labeled as such, that window is open. Again, I don't think they're getting there this year, but this was a big step for them. It's kind of like Houston last year, Houston getting that playoff win and being so dominant against Cleveland, giving legitimacy to their program in year one. And now Houston followed up with another win, dominant win against the Chargers the other day. So, lots of respect for Washington here. Legitimate win. I'm not going to downplay the win at all. And hey, credit to them. They got the quarterback. Dan Quinn is doing a great job as coach. They got their coach.
Great job.
It's not the same old Washington football team, Commanders. I think they got something here.
Yeah, and they do. And I think the Super Bowl window is always open when you bring in that quarterback who could be.
It's a quarterback-driven league. I mean, we got to see more. But I mean, hey, Daniels has shown a lot in year one. But yeah, it's all about the quarterback. You don't have a quarterback, you can't win. You have a quarterback, you get a chance.
Yeah, and the Giants could attest to that. But rapid fire predictions. I want to do some because I think we did that last time. Some rapid fire predictions. Probably when the game's over. When the game's over, we'll probably go more in depth about it.
You're going to talk about tonight's game before we get to divisional?
Oh yeah. Well, I think we did talk about tonight's game, but let's talk about it again. I mean, Vikings versus Rams. So it's a big game. I mean, the spread has gone. Not the spread. The money line has gotten closer and closer with these two teams. I think now it's like -1 something, -1. So it's gonna be a close game here. I mean,
Minnesota's a 2.5 point favorite on the road. This game is in Glendale, Arizona, because of the wildfires in California. So I mean, you want to say that's a bit of a factor that the Rams are not playing home? I mean, I think it is. But I'm not going to put too much into that in terms of my prediction. I said last week on the show, I think the Rams will win. I'm sticking with that. I say the word program a lot. I know program's more associated with college sports, but the Rams have a program. McVay is an excellent coach. They got the quarterback clearly.
They got two wide receiver ones. They got Nakua and Cooper Kupp. So
yeah, they got weapons on offense. I trust the Rams. They had a similar regular season this year to last year where they started slow and then they picked it up. I know they lost last week, but they already had the division and a playoff spot wrapped up. So I have a trust factor with the Rams. Last year, they lost in the wild card round, but they were in Detroit. They went toe to toe with them. Again, like to me, the Rams are a big time, legitimate program. Won a Super Bowl a few years ago. It just comes down to trust for me. I don't trust Minnesota. Look, great regular season, but look at what they did last week. Just getting blitzed in Detroit. And look, big game. You win that game, you get a bye. You're the number 1 seed. Instead, they're going on the road as the 5 seed, playing a very tough Rams team. There's just something with Minnesota. I just don't believe in them, and I know that's strange to say or kind of being overly critical of a 14-3 team, but I just think last week, maybe it's too strong to say exposes them, but it exposes something about them. There's just something missing. You want to like say it factor. I know in this age of analytics, like it factor type of things are frowned upon, at least from some people. But I have a trust factor with the Rams. I believe in what they do. Their head coach, their quarterback, their weapons on offense. They aren't in their home building, but it is a home game for them. I'm going to take them.
I'm going to take them too. I think the ability of just straight up being able to score a lot.
But they can control a game too.
Yes.
They control the football game, and I think it's coaching. And I know with the Viking, O'Connell is their head coach.
Yeah. He's good.
He's a good young coach, but McVay is a stud. And he's a young coach. He came in young. He's still young. I think he's like in his late 30s, but he's a stud coach. I just give me that guy. Give me his team. Give me the program they have. I think I feel pretty confident about them winning this game too.
I think the confidence comes from this game on December 8th against the Bills. I mean, they beat the Bills here 44-42. They had a high scoring game. So again, that could be the recipe here. I mean,
the Rams beat the Vikings in the regular season. I don't want to put too much stock in a regular season game, but hey, they did beat them in the regular season. Minnesota only had 3 losses, and one of them was to the Rams.
Yeah, I mean, they have the weapons, man. They have the weapons. Their defense suspect, but I think it will be fine against a team like the Vikings. I think because Sam Darnold would give you the ball once, he'll give you the ball once. I mean,
that's another thing too. What is Sam Darnold going to do in a playoff game? I just, ton of respect for him resurrecting his career.
Ton. It's
but
great.
Isn't there concern there? Like, I know he's turned a corner in his career, but what is he going to do in a playoff game? Going up against, I know they don't go head to head on the field, but on the other side, you have Stafford, Super Bowl winning quarterback, established quarterback. You know that he could get it done in a big spot like this. I mean, if you just want to go simple, go quarterback, it's like, okay, I'm taking Matthew Stafford over Sam Darnold. No disrespect to O'Connell, but I'm taking McVay. And I'm taking what the Rams have established. I have a trust factor with the Rams. I know I keep saying it, but I feel pretty confident in this. I really, and maybe that should be a red flag, but I feel pretty confident that the Rams will control this game. I don't think it's going to be a lopsided game. I'll say it'll be a 1-possession game, but I think the Rams get this done.
Yeah, I think the Rams do get it done. Now let's do some rapid fire predictions so we can get into some Knicks talk at the tail end of the show. So Texans versus Chiefs. I think this one is obviously Chiefs. The Texans.
Yeah, it's going to be Chiefs. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think it will be competitive. Just the way the Chiefs play now, like games stay close. I think they'll control the game.
It's good television. It's good television. But I think, it will stay close.
Yeah, Chiefs, I think it'll wind up being like a 10-point game. I think it'll be close a lot of the game, but the Chiefs will be in control. I think it'll be a typical Chiefs game. So, again, Houston, major kudos for what they did in the wild card round. I mean, that's a big win. They really showed a lot, but it's just too tall a task. They'll be competitive, but the Chiefs will get it done.
Okay, so second game here is the Commanders versus the Lions at 8 p.m. on Saturday. what's your thoughts? I kind of want to see because this is gonna be a game that again I don't really think that it will be like a blowout. I think, I mean, the Lions could definitely blow us out.
Why am I thinking about this game in terms of like who to pick? It's kind of crazy, but like I'm just gonna check what is the spread on this game. I'm checking it. Lions 9.5. Look, I think Washington's going to be competitive in the game. I think they really showed something last night. People could maybe say you make it too big a deal. They played Tampa Bay. No, that's a legitimate playoff win. You go on the road. I think Washington's going to be competitive in the game. Again, if you have a quarterback, and I know he's a rookie, but look, he's already got a playoff win under his belt. Drove the team down the field at the end of the game, get a field goal, win the game. I think Washington's going to be competitive in this game. And a factor with Detroit is I think they have massive pressure on them. Detroit has never been to a Super Bowl. The fans there so badly, great fan base. Detroit's a great sports city. So badly want to get there and obviously win one. There's a lot of pressure that comes with that. I feel like that's a factor. And, maybe Detroit handles that really well. I mean, they got to the NFC Championship last year, were big against San Francisco, lost that game. But I get hung up on that. I'm like, when I look for teams where there's a lot of pressure and then how are they going to handle that pressure? What happens if Washington gets up early and that place goes silent? I think Washington's going to be competitive. I think Washington covers the spread, but Detroit is really good, really well coached. I think he tries to get a little too fancy sometimes, Campbell, but he's obviously a really good coach, has really built something here. So I'll go Detroit by a touchdown, but I think this is going to be a very competitive game.
Yeah, and this is a Detroit win. I would say like 30-20. I don't think it's going to be a touchdown game. I think it's going to be like kind of a pull away. I think they're definitely going to be, in my opinion, I think they're definitely going to be kneeling at the end. It's going to be 30-20. I think it might be a little bit of pull away game. But I think I would give the Commanders, and this might be a little close. And I think it will show a lot about the Lions.
I think I'm going to be surprised. I think I'll be surprised if it's not close. I think Washington, they earned my respect. I don't think I respected them enough this year. I mean, I thought they were good, but I'm like, all right, let's.
I mean, this division this year, the NFC East division. I mean, besides the Eagles, who are a machine, I think. Besides them, it was really
the division helped them.
The Commanders, and then you had the banged up Cowboys. You had the New York
division
Giants.
helped them, but they were 12-5. And look, they earned a lot of respect last night. That's a big win. You go on the road in the playoffs against a team that has been in the playoffs 5 years in a row with a very good quarterback, an established head coach. Look, I give them a lot of credit for that win. Now, Detroit is going to be a whole nother level. Detroit's significantly better than Tampa Bay. But I just think Washington's going to be competitive in this game. I think the pressure with Detroit, I could see Detroit, just the pressure getting to them a little bit in this game, which could probably help them going forward. You win this game, you settle into the playoffs. But I expect Washington to be competitive in this game. Yeah, I do not think it'll be a blowout.
Yeah, better to get the pressure now than get it against the Eagles.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue the pressure builds as the playoff goes on, but I think that first playoff game, you had a bye. Maybe you're a little rusty off the bye. The bye could work both ways. You get rest, but, it could work the other way, at least early in the game, which I think Washington has to get off to a good start. They have to get off to a good start in this game, which I kind of see them doing that, which will keep it a close game, a competitive game, but ultimately – they're really good. They're home. I think they'll win this game.
So let's get into a game that we could probably talk about for an hour. The Ravens versus the Bills. This is a game that we were all circling about when we even started the season. But these two teams matching up. Josh Allen versus Lamar Jackson, and Derrick Henry versus Josh Allen and James Cook. We've been circling that, and the Ravens defense versus the Buffalo Bills defense. So what is your kind of take on this game and kind of prediction?
Baltimore is a 1.5-point favorite on the road. Baltimore wins. Let's talk about the next game.
Oh, I forgot that you didn't like that, but yeah, I think
Baltimore. I've said enough about the Bills. I've said enough about Baltimore. The audience knows how I feel about both teams. Baltimore, book it, book
yeah,
it.
I don't think Booker, but I think that this is a team that just has more surrounding pieces, has more to surrounding the
They're
guy.
a more complete football team.
I think
And that is going to show on Sunday. No problem. Is the game on Sunday? Yes, it is. 6:30 Sunday. No problem them going on the road. They play in cold weather. Buffalo plays in cold weather. I think Baltimore is going to assert their will. They're the more complete football team, and I just feel confident in it.
Yeah, I just feel like these two teams. The biggest thing is they have the common denominator between these two teams is they have that guy, and how do you surround that guy? And I think that the Baltimore Ravens do a better job, and that's why you got to go with the Ravens here. And I think yes, again, the Bills have had a great season. Their defense is great, but just see the Bills just tiring them out, man. They did the same thing with the Steelers, where defense is at.
Bills benefit from their division a bit too. The Bills are 13-4. The Ravens are 12-5. The Ravens are in a much better division. So the division helps the Bills. I mean, it helps them get the home field advantage in this game. So, look, somebody can say, look, you're really nitpicking with the Bills. But they're in a division with the awful Patriots, the circus Jets, and the not-so-good Dolphins. So the Ravens are with Pittsburgh. Since I know the Browns are bad, but they're with Pittsburgh and they're with Cincinnati. They're more battle-tested. They're just a more complete football team. Like, I'm sorry. I keep, knocking the Bills, but prove it, Bills. I don't think they will. I think Baltimore controls this game, asserts themselves. And I feel confident Baltimore will get it done. It'll just be the same old for the Bills. I'm not afraid to say it. I don't believe in the Buffalo Bills.
Okay, so let's get into some basketball talk. I want to talk a little bit about the Knicks because we didn't get into them last episode.
Real quick before the Knicks, I think whoever wins tonight beats the Eagles. More confident in the Rams, but whoever wins tonight beats the Eagles.
I could definitely go with that as well. I think that's the thing that you could think about, but I think, I think whoever wins tonight has I think a good chance to beat the Eagles. Very good chance because the big competition difference between whatever the Eagles played in the Packers and whatever their thing that they just absolutely just played awful. But the competitive difference between them and a Rams / a Vikings is a big difference, and it's gonna be a big thing for them to overcome. But I'm gonna get
Knicks, Jack. Haven't talked about the Knicks in a while on this show, so update us. Great win yesterday.
Great win yesterday, but again, I think the last 5 games for them, last 6 games have been kind of sad. I mean, the defensive effort that you see with Tom Thibodeau usually has not shown up. I think the shooting, of course, I mean, you can talk about the shooting here with the Knicks, and there's bad shooting from them. You have players like Mikal Bridges going back into slumps of his shooting. And you have OG really not living up to the contract. I think he does, but at points he just doesn't. And it looks at him like, what are you doing? Some plays where it's like, what are you doing defensively, offensively? And sometimes with these Knicks players, I don't know what they're doing offensively and defensively, but one thing is the captain is there, but the captain hasn't really showed up in these last 6 games. But he did a great job last game, kind of silencing the haters, and whoever said whatever about him and that he's not playing good and that he needs to play better. So you've been saying that, but again, it comes to the head of the snake. And if Jalen Brunson is not, if the ball isn't moving the way you want it to, and you're kind of stuck in mud, and that really goes out to the head of the snake. And just the minutes, man, the minutes are really bad. And I do think, okay, these are millionaire athletes to get paid to do it, but man, you cannot be playing these because then you really you really jeopardize other games that are bigger tests against the Thunder. You just get right out of the building because you're too worried beating the Bulls in a January game where you could be focusing. I know it's hard to focus on it, but there's teams that just really rest their guys and they focus on the elite teams. But again, um, the Knicks are not a team that wants to rest guys, so they're gonna have to play them less. But also you can think about it this one way: is the bench has not been playing well, no production off the bench. When you build your team nowadays in basketball, it's a lot of salary cap implications when whatever. There's a lot of
Implications.
implications when you're the Knicks and you build a team where you have like 40 million dedicated to Cat and even though he took a pay cut, like about 30 million dedicated to the captain, and you have Jay McKellar's about 20 million. OG, I know he signed a big deal, 42 million. So you have Josh Hart, 20 million. So you're really tied in with these five guys. So the rest of them with this new CBA and the second apron, you really have to play some guys you don't want to play. So Thibodeau's not really been a guy who can trust players like Tyler Cole, that can trust players like Pacome Dadier. So you're gonna play these can trust rookies and can trust rookies. So there's a lot of players that get a lot more minutes than they probably should, and it really hurts them. And it really makes their offense stuck in mud. So I think it's a bad trickle down for them. And the defense the effort isn't there. I think also there's another thing, the effort just isn't there.
Is that a Knicks thing or an NBA thing with the defense? Because that's been the thing for years that people have said, and I believe the defensive effort in the regular season, like, is that a Knicks thing, or is that more of a thing throughout the NBA? Because you look at the scores. I know it's a 3-point shooting game now, but you look at the scores of NBA games. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, the Knicks scored 140 points yesterday. They still gave up 106.
Doc Rivers maybe the worst coach I've ever seen in my life. I know this is like kind of like a sports talk show. We shouldn't really be doing this, but Doc Rivers is probably one of the worst coaches I've seen in my life. The way he just
he's so overrated.
He's so bad. Like the way he just let Jalen
that one championship because the Celtics loaded up in 2008.
The way he just let Jalen Brunson do whatever he wanted last night was insane. Because you okay, the under just absolutely bottle him up. You go and you're like, let me just put my rookie on Jalen Brunson and not do anything else. Just let him on an island with one of the best scorers I think I've seen in my life. That's not going to work. That just never works. And he has 45, and he just flexed on you as they go to a 30-point victory over you.
That just I'm looking at the standings right now. The Knicks are the third seed in the Eastern Conference currently. The Bucks are the sixth spot. So currently, you would have Knicks Bucks in the first round. I think that'd be great for the Knicks. I think the Knicks
my God, that
would assert their will and just take
the Knicks have such a good matchup over the Bucks. I think the Knicks just have that matchup to a T. I think they always beat them. They just not always beat them when they had their team, had their guys, Brunson.
It's too early for playoff matchups, but that just caught my attention. Like, oh, book that right now.
Yeah, I mean, they'll probably sweep them. I mean, look, Doc Rivers does not know how to handle Jalen Brunson. If you don't know how to handle Jalen Brunson, you're getting smoked. Point blank, period. As much as you're a big Jalen Brunson hater, big Jalen Brunson lover, it doesn't matter. If you can't handle him, point blank,
period. Is there such thing as a Jalen Brunson hater? I mean, if that person exists, there's something really wrong with them.
Well, when you have small guards that draw a lot of fouls, a lot of people who don't like them. But yeah, I mean, Jalen Brunson kind of like guys who like, is he really like a super? But again, you can't let this guy go off. And if you have a team that just wants to who thinks they can just live with it, you're not winning a series.
I think the most important thing to talk about when it comes to the Knicks is how they compare to the elite teams in the NBA. So, and we took stock of this a few times this year. We haven't done it in a while. So,
0-5.
Where are the Knicks right now in comparison to Boston, Cleveland, Oklahoma City?
Look, they're in the.
And then one more thing I want to sneak in there. You take the floor. How legitimate is Cleveland? Record is obviously amazing. But also, how good is Cleveland?
I'm gonna start with the Knicks thing. I think they're in the tier 3 right now of the league. I think I would take, the 3 teams in the East of Celtics, Cavs and well, the three big teams, Celtics, Cavs, and OKC, and then you would go down Memphis, Houston, and then I think you get to the Knicks.
Really?
So I mean, they just are 0-6 in games that are against top two teams of the conference in each conference. So they just are a team that kind of like I watched this game in person. This is awful, complete
Which game
awful.
did you watch in person?
What?
Which game did you watch in person?
OKC Thunder versus Knicks.
Oh yeah.
They got smoked out the building. Eli Manning was there, threw a football on the ground. Great. That was probably the best moment of the game. Fell right in front of like kind of like a few rows in front of me. Great. That was probably the best moment of the game. They got crushed. I think it's I mean, OKC is kind of a machine, but you can't you got it when you put your team against when you say this team is one of the best top fives in the league, like best five in the league. 5 stars in the league. I think that you have to play against teams like this. You have to play them really well.
So you got the Knicks in the 3rd tier. I'm looking at the Western standings. How about Denver? Do you put Denver in the tier?
I'd put Denver down again, down on the Knicks. I think they're lower than the Knicks. They crushed Denver. They crushed Denver.
Yeah.
And they have crushed Denver. So they're a team that.
Well, the Knicks were competitive in Oklahoma City. They played them much better. I mean, they were winning a lot of that game in OKC, but the game at the Garden, they got smoked.
The game at the Garden, they got smoked and they got absolutely exposed. I mean, they were just surrounding the Knicks defensively, and the Knicks didn't shoot the ball well, and they didn't do anything else well. So they got crushed, and they couldn't defend anything. I mean, Isaiah Joe was doing whatever he wanted to. They left everybody wide open, which isn't the thing. Oh, these random role players go off against the Knicks. Well, what happens if you just didn't leave them open? They wouldn't go off. 31 points for Isaiah Joe. This is a guy that's been always a great three-point shooter, and you leave him wide open. So I think the Knicks are, when they play these teams for now, athletic teams, I've said it, athletic teams are going to be the death of the Knicks until they fix it. Who can just outrun you? Who are just more athletic than you?
How do you rank the top 3 teams? And then what is the gap for the Knicks?
They can
from all 3 of those teams. So rank the top 3 teams, and then how would you quantify the gap between the Knicks and each of those 3 teams? How far off are the Knicks from each of those 3 teams separately?
Number 1 is I might go OKC Thunder. I might do it. It's the OKC Thunder, number 1. The defense, the offense, they're the Celtics, but with like a deeper and better defensive team. And they swarm this Knicks team. They don't have a DPOY. Their DPOY is out. Defensive Player of the Year, who could be a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, and Chet Holmgren is out. So this is a team that's dangerous. I mean, they bring in Isaiah Hartenstein this offseason. We all know about that, but their defense is swarming. And the way they can shoot that basketball, the way they have players, and the way Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's playing, unstoppable. I don't think anybody in playoff series can stop that or even contain that. So that's why I put them at 1. I think the Knicks are pretty far off being that deep team. I think the Thunder are really deep, and they're probably far off from that, and they're very athletic, and they can shoot. They have players who consistently can shoot the ball very well. So the Knicks do not have that right now. Number 2, the Celtics. The Celtics, the team that won the championship last year. They play great defense. They swarm you, and they shoot the ball well from 3. So the Knicks are probably closer to them. They definitely are closer to them. I think on a good day, the Knicks shoot the lights out. The Celtics maybe miss some threes, and the Celtics aren't really that good of a defense team as OKC is to kind of make up for that. And they have Tatum, who is really a guy that plays some hero ball, and in clutch time, they aren't really a team that I would bank on. So then I think New York is closer to that. And then you go 3rd, I think, is Cleveland. I mean, Cleveland, they're great, but they're a team that always, they need to prove it to me. As good as they are, I mean, it's crazy. I feel bad because they're a team that's played amazing in the regular season. I know it's the regular season, but they've played amazing, out of their mind.
Do you think Cleveland is a lock to get to the conference finals? Do you think they'll hold on to the 1 seed as the season goes on?
They may hold on the 1 seed, but I don't think they're locked for the Eastern Conference Finals. I think the Knicks are on the Knicks if they get it together. I think.
Well, I mean the Knicks. I mean, you look at the state again. I mean, we're not even halfway through the season. We're almost at the halfway point. The Knicks are the 3, the Celtics are the 2. So they would line up to play in the conference semifinals in the second round. So if that held, so Celtics and Knicks going head to head in the second round, could somebody pick off the Cavaliers before the conference finals?
Pick off the Cavs before if the Magic get fully healthy, that defense and Paul Banchero and the way he played against them last season, that could be a team that could pick up the Cavs because they kind of have a playoff thing where they kind of like they lose their defensive touch and they kind of slow down. So I think the Magic team could definitely be there to beat them. I know the record, you're looking at the record, it may not be indicative, but they missed Powell for a lot of the season. So this is a team, once they get him back, and they have that Jamal Mosley, they have Jamal Mosley as their coach, and they have that system that they play well. They're gonna be hungry every single game, every single possession. They're not gonna give a possession off. That mentality could be scary for the Cavs.
So let me ask you this. The Knicks are 26-14, so one more game and they'll be exactly halfway through the regular season. What grade would you give the Knicks overall for the first half of the season?
I think B would be my grade here. I think it's a little bit low. People could say it's lower, people could say it's higher, but I think B is perfect because they have won games where they should win. I think the team's getting chemistry. I think the team is what it is now. Gain chemistry, won games they should win. And they're at 12 games over 500 at the end of the day, and they're third in the East. So that's probably where they want to be. And they are there. So the defense, again, gets shaped up a little bit. The shooting, I mean, yes, they every team goes to down shooting weeks, and the Knicks just need to figure out a way to get out of it. So I think when they get out of it, that's kind of where they could strike. But for now, I think I'll give them a B.
Well, they got the Pistons tonight, so they should take care of them.
They should take care of them. The Pistons are good. And they're athletic, as I said. I think the Knicks could really lose this game. Because the Pistons are 19-18. They're athletic. They come out there in a system with J.D. Bickerstaff, and they play defense. And that Detroit team's riding behind them. And we talked about how good Detroit fans are for the Lions. I think the Pistons fan base is dying for one. Dying for a playoff game.
I see the Knicks are 7.5-point favorites. I thought it'd be higher than that. But, hey, the Detroit's, Detroit's really
athletic, and they lost them in the Garden before. So,
well, hey, they're 20-19. I mean, after what did they win? They lost 60+ games last year, right? So, yeah, they've clearly improved a ton. But it's a game the Knicks got to win. I mean, the Knicks should take care of business.
If you're the Knicks, I think
they don't. There's a big problem.
Yeah. Okay. So you want to send us off?
Yeah, we talked about a lot. I mean, a lot of football. We didn't get to the college football playoff. We'll talk about it next week on our show. You just had the semifinals, 2 close games, good games. We got Ohio State and Notre Dame. So we'll touch on that our next show. The championship is a week from tonight.